What's up, Narrative Nation? Happy
What's up?
Friday. It's your man, Mike Checks, and my friend, C.
Yes, sir.
And it's Friday once again. Hey, but before we get into this card, do us a favor. Hit that like button, tap that subscribe button, and now we're about to knock this out. We're about to talk about this weekend's card. C, hey, we got an interesting one, man. This is one of those Ultimate Fighter finale cards.
Ultimate Fighters.
Oh my gosh. So, hey, real quick, if you don't know what the Ultimate Fighter is, it's a reality show that these guys have been putting on. They put a bunch of guys in a house, they fight in a tournament, and these are the last contestants to survive this tournament. They're going to fight this weekend. Real quick, couple guys to look for. Guy named Ricky Tercios. I like him. Fellow Filipino like myself. He's got a big warrior spirit. He's fighting a young guy who's a jiu-jitsu dude who trains with Mike Chiesa. Could be interesting. I'm rooting for Ricky. Hey, usually I won't tell you who I'm rooting for. I'm rooting for Ricky this time. He's really cool, interesting martial artist. Would like to have y'all check him out. And then the other fight is between a guy named Brian Battle and Gilbert Urbina. And these guys will be fighting.
Question. Do you even watch the Ultimate Fighter?
Okay. No. Well, I haven't for years. They're rebooting the show. And for you casual fans, a lot of hardcore fans do not watch The Ultimate Fighter. C, do you watch it?
No, I don't. but what I am ready for is this banger we have with Kevin Lee and Daniel Rodriguez. It is a fight I'm super excited for. A little background, Daniel Rodriguez, 34 years old, is out of Cali. He's coming off a 2-fight win streak. Super excited about seeing what he can do. Really slick hands, super fighter. He came off a TKO. If you don't know what TKO is, that's technical knockouts. So that means the referee had to stop it. So it wasn't a complete sleeper, like my son say, sleepy sleeps. But he has nice, smooth moves. I love what he's doing. But he is fighting a guy and Kevin Lee that is coming up in weight. This fight will be a welterweight fight, so this will be a 170-pound weight class. Kevin Lee is coming up from 155 to fight in this weight class. This will be his second time fighting in this weight class. He lost his first fight in the weight class, Mike Check, but this time I think we'll see what's going to happen. With Kevin Lee, he's they call him the Motown Phenom. Yeah. So he's coming in with a 16-8 record. And so it's gonna be interesting. I'm looking at this fight as kind of being of a ranking fight. One guy have a ranking at number 11 over there at the lightweight, and D-Rod, which is Daniel Rodriguez, is going to be trying to look to get into those rankings. So this is a big name for him fighting this Kevin Lee fight. So what do you think? Anything about this fight? What you think is going to happen with it?
What do I think? Man, I think I like Kevin Lee a lot. He was one of these guys who was calling out a champion named Khabib Nurmagomedov. Everybody just calls him simply Khabib, who's now the greatest of all time. This guy, Kevin Lee, was calling Khabib out before it was popular. So Kevin Lee's definitely got a set of cojones on him. He's got some swag. The issue is with Kevin, man, he can break. He can break mentally. Ali Quinta did that. So I think I'm interested in is, has this pandemic and this time off given Kevin Lee an opportunity to become stronger mentally? He's going to go up in weight, like you said. He's not going to have to make a drastic weight cut, which just depletes you and makes your body so tired it's hard to fight.
Yeah, so I'm interested. Also, with him having this year layoff, coming off a couple surgeries, it's going to be interesting, right? You know, he's an all-around fighter. You know, I think this is going to be a really, really hard fight for D-Rod. He's just going to give Kevin Lee's going to give him all kind of looks, and it's going to be interesting how this all plays out. To be honest with you, but it's going to be a banger. It's something casual fans. This one, I believe, this should have been the co-main event. So
that's a good point.
Yeah, so I think this should have been a co-main event. It's going to be a banger. It's going to be a problem. Hopefully, a knockout in one of the favorites. I'm not making any choices. I'm not picking. I just think it's going to be a great fight.
Yeah. I agree with you. It's going to be a great fight. I'm looking forward to D-Rod, young guy coming out of Texas, cool tattoos. Matter of fact, we're going to put a poll out on this later. So please, after the podcast or after the show is over, make sure you're checking out our stories on Instagram and hitting that those stories and answering these polls. We're going to ask a poll about the tattoos, man. Tell everybody a little bit about these tattoos.
So with the D-Rod has a 1986 tattoo on his chest. I have to rock with that because I'm a 1986 baby, so I'm loving that tattoo. And he really incorporates his the cage on his shoulder with the boxing glove and MMA. It's pretty hot. But then you roll over to Kevin Lee, who has his whole back of his head with a samurai helmet. So he's letting you know when you see him come Saturday that his head's going to be completely shaved. He's going to be in the zone. He'll have a samurai helmet for the world to see, ready to get it on come Saturday.
So what do you think about a whole head tattoo of a samurai helmet? Do you like this?
It's not for me. I
was thinking about it. I was honestly thinking about it. So, well, I don't. Interestingly, the main event, I don't think either guy has any tattoos. You got two guys. I don't think there are any tattoos. So I am extremely excited for the main event. Okay, so the main event is a guy named Giga Chikadze and a guy named Edson Barboza. So let's start with Ed. So Edson, hardcore fans are definitely going to know Edson Barboza. As you're getting to know him maybe for the first time, Edson is a really lovable guy. Super nice, big smile, very jolly. Except he's not nice in the cage. So originally from Brazil, now fights out of Florida. He is a legend, and I'm going to tell you, he is not nice. He's been in, as you see on there, 8 fight of the nights. He's got 8 finishes. This dude, he has KOs in all kinds of ways, and that's unique. He has knockouts by knees. Crazy flying knee against Beneil Dariush. He's got KO punches. Bop, 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 bop. And then he's got kicks. Joe Rogan has called this guy the best kicker in the UFC. Okay, he's got kick KOs, knockouts to the head, the body, and the legs. Body kicks are an extremely rare treat. TKO by leg kicks, although becoming more common now, I mean, that's amazing. But head kicks by KO, of course, so devastating. What were you going to say, C?
I was going to say, turn your TV up because, boy, it's going to sound, the pops of those kicks are going to be something to hear. I tell you that.
Yeah, and this one is in this one's in the Apex. So the Apex is this total enclosed arena that the UFC has secured. They've got their own hotel basically, and there will be fans, but it won't be that much. In the deep pandemic, and maybe we're going back there, God forbid, no. But in the deep part of the pandemic, they would have no fans in there, so you could hear every thud, every punch, every word, every breath. It was really fantastic. This will be similar, but we've got a little bit of a crowd in there. So yeah, dude, you're right, man. You're gonna hear these kicks. This guy's a kicking machine. This fight, and we'll talk more about Giga here in a second, but this fight really pits 2 kickers together. So if you're a casual fan and you really love those stand-up banging wars, this is going to be it. Now, it may be technical because both guys are not dumb, but it could have fight of the year written all over it as well. So I'm really excited about this one. An interesting thing about Edson here, like Kevin. So Kevin was a guy who was cutting way too much weight, and now he's moving up to 170. And I think you're right, man. I think he's re-energized at that weight class.
But you
this is the opposite.
Kevin also beat Edson Barboza.
Yes, he's on this card.
So don't forget that. So that's another, like I've been saying, Kevin Lee has some big names, but Edson Barboza is reinvented himself a couple times.
Edson's on there, yeah. And, that's like last week where you had a guy who's come up in weight versus a guy who's come down in weight. So in this case, Kevin Lee's going up. Edson's gone down. So they met together at 155. Edson's made wholesale changes to his diet, exercise regimen, all this stuff, and he is looking better than ever. And he's at 145. And I say better than ever because this guy has got a long history, man. He's been in the UFC since 2010. So I want to contrast him. So what we have with Edson is a strong Brazilian. So he's from outside of the United States with incredible kickboxing, big kicks, and but has been here for about 10 years, over 10 years. Let me contrast that to his opponent. His opponent is Giga Chikadze. Okay. He's also from outside of the U.S. He's from this country called Georgia, which is in between Russia and Iraq. It's in that middle part. And this guy grew up about the same age as us, dude. 1986. I'm a 1986 guy as well. Okay. This guy grew up in that time frame where the Soviet Union was collapsing. And on top of that, like, his country was going through a revolution. That's the childhood that this guy came from, right? So toughness and being able to just deal with a crazy environment, that's been with him from day one. He's a lifelong martial artist. He's got a kickboxing background. Sounds familiar? Because we just talked about Edson. Yeah, this dude's a kickboxer too from outside of the U.S. He's also known for his insane kicks. In fact, his specialty move, he calls the Giga kick. His name is Giga Chikadze. I know that's a weird name or different name for us here in the U.S. Giga, and he's got the Giga kick. It's a kick to the liver, boom, and those liver kicks. What they do when you watch for this in the fight, when there's a bad liver kick, it basically just almost completely paralyzes the guy, where he's rendered totally immobile.
And speaking of I think that should be another poll. That's another poll. What the Giga kick versus Edmonds leg kicks.
Oh yeah. Oh yes. The leg kicks. Yeah, let's do that. Do that poll, please.
That's definitely a poll.
You got that. So this guy's different. Okay, so they're not that different in age. See, Giga's 33, Edson's 35. This guy is on his first run in the UFC. So he only came to the UFC in in 2019. He stayed really busy during the pandemic. And he's really made a name for himself, especially over the last couple of fights. He's got 2 big knockouts, both that were set up by kicks. Okay. One thing that you'll see when they're really trying to build a new contender for a champion is you'll see sometimes a young up-and-coming guy or a new up-and-coming guy fight a legend. And what could happen is the legend proves that he's still in there and still has got it, and he's got that run in him or her, and they'll pit them up against the younger fighter. If the legend loses, the younger fighter now has his name, his reputation. He's got to win over this established fighter, and it helps propel him or her forward. So we'll call that sometimes a push. Okay, yes. Giga's getting the push, dude. Giga's getting the push. They just gave him Killer Cub. He knocked out Killer Cub. Killer Cub is another one of these legends who everybody knows and respects. He knocked out Killer Cub with that Giga kick, and now they're giving him another legend in Edson Barboza. So this is very interesting. Check out our post on Instagram for just different things to look up in YouTube, different fights, different things to watch. But this is really interesting. I want to talk about some of the narratives right quick. The other thing is I just digested. So I'll talk about some of these on screen here. But I just digested something that y'all need to watch. It is the UFC's, if you got ESPN Plus, watch the UFC's Destined series on this. And so here's my thesis. I'll start with the UFC. We'll talk about Edson. I kind of talked about them already, talk about Giga. But here's what I think the UFC is kind of doing. And I hate to phrase it this way because as a big fan, as someone who just loves this, I love and respect what these guys are doing. I love and respect Edson and Giga. But when I look at it from the promotion,
we have to dig down in the narrative. What's the narrative?
Into the narrative.
Yeah. What's making us watch this? What's that one thing that's gonna like having the back of our minds we watching this to help us root for whoever we want to root for? I think this is big.
I think when the UFC is doing this, it's almost like updating to a new model. Okay, I want to talk about the similarities between these guys, and it's about to get real freaky based on the show, the Destined series I just mentioned. So both guys I had mentioned are brutal kickboxers from outside the U.S. That fits a certain role, a certain archetype in the UFC's roster, a guy that you want to watch. Edson is older. He's been with the UFC for 10 plus years. Giga's that newer model. He's only been with the UFC 2 years. They've already fed Giga. Cub Swanson, are they feeding him again? That's the narrative. But I'm gonna. But let me hit you with this right quick. So I watched that show. These guys are so close. Listen to the stories. If you watch this show, you'll see that the storylines between these two guys are very similar. Here's the storylines between both of them. Both of them have these things in common. Listen. Both of them had fathers who were martial artists that got them into the martial arts at a young age. Giga's dad was into judo. Edson's dad was into kickboxing. They both had very few kickboxing promotions in their home country. So Brazil for Edson, Georgia for Giga. Both of them had situations where the kickboxing promotions basically had financial issues and had no ability to continue to put on fights.
Wow.
They both, this gets crazier. They both leave their home country and move to the U.S. to pursue a career, and they both switch to MMA within a very short time. So they're both kickboxers. They both moved to the United States. Edson moves to the East Coast. Giga moves to the West Coast. It's almost two stories happening at the same time. It's about to get insane. Edson was talking about on this show how his dad was the one who got him into martial arts and was his best friend. Giga talks about how his mom was his best friend. Okay. Edson's dad died of cancer a couple years ago. Giga's mom died of cancer a couple years ago. Like, it is insane how similar the stories are between these two. So when I say the UFC is like repeating or updating a new model, I am so serious about this. So there are a couple, and I'll update this. There are a couple narratives that are on here that you can look at. So Edson coming up in weight, going down in weight, couldn't capture the belt at 155, going down to 145. That's a narrative, okay, guys. He's been in the UFC for 10 plus years, so he's on his what they call last run. He's got one more run in him. What's on the line for Ed? If he loses, it's going to be really, especially if he loses bad, like a bad KO, and this fight has KO written all over it for either guy.
Yes.
It's going to be, yeah, I mean, it's going to be a banger. It's going to be really hard for Edson to come back to a championship fight. So that's what's on the line for him. This is like a guy's last shot.
So Mike, check where if he does lose this fight, does he have one or two more fights left? Is it any revenge fights out there for him? Is what you think may add up to it?
He's got some great. One of his best rivalry was with Paul Felder, who's also retired. If that says anything about when your most prevalent rival in your career has retired, maybe you're getting there too, right? Yeah. I don't know what you do with him. Honestly, what will probably happen to him is he'll continue to think that he is on a championship run, or he can get back to it, and they will feed him again to a couple more younger contenders and use every bit of his name and reputation until he's got 3 or 4 losses in a row, and then he gets cut, and then it's over. Hall of Fame career. But I hate it. But what happens if he loses is serious. If he wins, he's still on that run. Yeah, he still has a shot. Notice the rankings. Like, Giga's number 9, Edson's number 10. Right? There's not a significant ranking change that could happen here, but what does happen here is if Edson wins, he can continue to try. And maybe he's 1 or 2 or 3 fights away from a title shot. If he can do it, it would be amazing. Giga's that new model, right? So he's building to his first titles. He's on his first run, and he's undefeated in the UFC so far. They're building him. They're giving him that push that we talked about, by now giving him Edson Barboza. So he's trying to build his resume up off of Edson. Edson's got to stop that. If Giga wins, especially by brutal finish, like a KO and a kick KO, man, that can happen. Maybe 1 or 2 more fights.
So with that Giga win, right, what sets up for him? I say 2 more fights.
1 or 2?
1 or 2 more fights, and he's definitely a title shot for sure.
Especially if he continues to win in the way he has been winning. So if you're checking this guy out for the first time, go back and watch his last 2 KOs. Cub Swanson, yes. Another guy named Jamie. I can't remember his last name. No disrespect to Jamie, but he was a new guy to the UFC as well. So I wasn't too familiar with him. But a couple of really nice highlight reel KOs. This is what's on the page. When I watched that show, this is what I realized is the real narrative happening here. Both of these guys are fighting for their American dream to come true. You're talking about coming from less developed, poor nations. In Giga's case, you're talking about war-torn. In Edson's case, you're talking about lack of resources, poverty. They talk about this in the show. He still had a great family structure, but they're not coming from a place of stability. They come to the United States and they're chasing a single dream. Both of them have the same dream.
But I almost look at it as the same thing as well. Is Edson came before Giga, right? So is he like is the version 2, right? Is the version,
it's version 2
with not only leg kicks, with a very precise liver kick, right? A kick that is seeming to be hard to block or is so sneaky that it's finding a way and he knows exactly where to put it to cripple you. So it's an evolution. You know, Barboza's a great leg kick, but he never really had a tool like Giga with the liver kick. I mean, it's there. If he can find it, only thing he touch you with it once is over. Like you're gonna go in the fetal position and it's gonna end up being a TKO.
It's definitely about the updated version. Yeah, updated version. And can the older model still hold his own? And if Giga wins, Edson's American dream is cut short in that he'll never have left his country, come to the United States, sought a championship, and achieved it. Giga would take that from him.
So I would definitely say the stakes are so much higher for Edson, for sure.
Yes, the pressure is on Edson.
Because, you know, Giga lose a fight, he slips a little bit, he gets a win streak, he's right back on track. But Edson, he loses this one. He has 1 or 2 more fights, but I don't think he ever have a shot back at the belt again.
Absolutely, you got that right. Right, Giga loses. He lost to Edson Barboza. This is how the promotion wins no matter what. Right, so they've done a great job. So those are the narratives that you can look for this weekend. You got the Ultimate Fighter, and who's going to win that first contract? Kevin Lee versus D-Rod. Couple big guys really trying to start their runs.
Trying to find a way with a number beside their name, right? Trying to get on that 1 through 15, trying to find their way to get on that spot. Because I feel like if Kevin Lee wins that fight, 1 or 2 fights that he's fighting for the title, but the names and resume he fight for the title. But D-Rod, he comes up, he wins this fight, he has a big name of Kevin Lee on him. One more big name kind of hopefully puts him in the top 15. And moves him right on up. So I look at this fight, it is a placement fight. It is trying to get a number by your name, and one of these fighters will have a number.
And then the main event, which I'm calling, you could call it the Battle of the Kickers. You could call it the Battle for the American Dream. You could call it the Battle of keeping your software relevant, making sure you don't have to get upgraded and updated every time. But it's going to be incredible. I'm so looking forward to it. Thank you for tuning into the narrative. Casual Friday. We will be bringing it back next Friday as well. Thank you so much. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow the narrative. Good night, y'all. See you next week.